Welcome to the Postalmate webinar, Postalmate version 14. This includes new carrier requirements. My name is Karen Grant and I'll be your instructor today. Happy to have you all on board. In this update, we will be discussing multi-factor authentication for carrier registration. Wow, that was a mouthful. Carrier technology change that's required. And dynamic rating, new to Postalmate. Very excited about this. Before you do this update, check the hardware specs. We have some stores that have computers, even master computers that are 8, 10, 12 years old. It's time to get a new computer, especially master workstations. Please update those. Clear out any ProPack laters and any quotes that you may have. They will not convert properly to version 14.0. I mean, if you leave them, you can clear them out later. I'm just saying that once you go to 14.0, you will not be able to get a proper retrieval of either of those. You can use quotes and ProPack later in 14.0, but you have to start it new in 14.0. Backup Postalmate before you do the update. So if something blows up and the world ends, you have your backup and can restore and we can try the update again. Have not had it fail for anybody, but I don't want you to be the first. Restart every computer, including the auxiliaries, before you do the update. Make them clean and clear. And this is really important, and maybe the only time I will say this. If you do not ship UPS, you can wait a few weeks to do this update. If you do ship UPS, you must do this update before the weekend following the one coming. So on or before the 4th of August. When you launch Postalmate after the update, you'll get a screen that looks like this. It's going to say, hey, you need to subscribe FedEx and UPS, but the subscription is completely different from anything we've ever had in Postalmate before. This is new multi-factor authentication by both carriers. You've seen it with other websites you've used, and it requires some significant details. In the past, UPS was always kind of a PITA, pain in the neck, to subscribe. And FedEx was easy. Well, with the new 14.0, they kind of switched places. The UPS registration is quite easy, and now the FedEx one is a little more complex. So I will walk you through that procedure so you know exactly what to have on hand, exactly what to expect, and you will be able to manage it. If you have not yet printed out the update guide, it has been emailed to everybody, but it's also available on your webinar dashboard in the handout section. It is big. I mean, really big. Colette does all of our update guides. She does a fabulous job, but she worked tirelessly for like a week on this. I mean, she was up all night long. She emailed me late, like Sunday night with the final one. I mean, it's 19 pages, guys. And it's all information you really, really need to know. So the first 2 pages are always just how to update, but everything else after that is brand new to you. Remember, it's not all words. There's lots and lots of pictures, so please don't think it's a textbook. It's more like more of a picture book with words than a textbook. So when you click yes, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to take you to the UPS registration. The UPS registration is going to take you straight to this page in the upper left corner here, and you're going to enter your ups.com username or email. Please listen to me very carefully. This is not your access point credentials. This is your ups.com credentials. They are very different. Currently in your computer, you probably have gone to ups.com. You've probably been in there, but your computer probably saves your credentials. If you don't know what your current credentials are, then please open up a browser that's, quote, in privacy or incognito. They call it different things with different browsers. So you get a page that won't have saved it and try to log in there and play with it there. I don't want you playing with it in here. Get your username or email that you use and your password and have that ready. So you will type that in, click by continuing, the little check mark there, click next, and then it will ask you for the password, log in, and that's all there is to it. You're done. easy peasy as long as you have your ups.com email and username and password. Okay, so that part's easy. Get your credentials, write them down, make sure that they're good. Then once you're done with that, if you use FedEx, it'll take you to the FedEx. Now, if you only use FedEx, it'll go straight to FedEx. If you don't use FedEx, then it won't even show you FedEx. It's only going to show the carriers you use. Most of you, not all, most of you use both, and it'll first go through UPS and then FedEx. If by some chance you fail or you don't have the right stuff, you can move to the next carrier and register that one, and you can come back in carrier settings and register for the one that you didn't have the proper credentials for. So don't panic. You will have every opportunity to do this. You can always go back and do it later in the day, or an hour later or 2 days later. I don't care when, but you always have the chance of going back. It's not a one chance only. So please don't panic if it goes wrong. Just move on, and then in your downtime, figure out what you did wrong and get that information. We don't have that information. We can't help you with that information. That's between you and the carriers. That's the whole point of multi-factor authentication, is it's more secure and other people don't know it. So for FedEx, it's a little bit tricky. I want you to pay very close attention when you're registering FedEx. So you're going to put in your data here, but look at what it says over here. It wants your billing address and billing name. And the name really honestly isn't all that big a deal. The address is a big deal. Sometimes, most of the time, for most of you, it's your store, but sometimes you do all your billing at your home or at your bookkeeper's address or your accountant's address or some other address. Maybe you have 4 stores and you have all your bills go to one store, but the account is for the other. It wants your billing address. That's what it's looking for here. So be very careful here. Make sure that you have an invoice in hand, a recent invoice. Now, it can be a little old, but not too old, up to 90 days. My preference would be that it would be within the last few weeks. Have an invoice. If you use online billing, go to online and print an invoice out. You can do that. Have that in hand. That's going to be the easiest way to get through this subscription in the next page. So let's take a look at what that looks like. The subscription on the next page is going to have you choose one of these following selections: a FedEx invoice, a text message, an email, or a phone call. Let me describe each of these. The easiest one, honestly, is the FedEx invoice. But a text message will only work if the phone number on record at FedEx is a cell phone. Your company phone can't get a text message. So most of you have your store phone number is an actual landline, old-fashioned landline. If that is true and you can't get a text message, then you will not be able to select SMS. Email, it has to be the email on record, and I have seen that grayed out a lot of times, so it's not available. Just so you know, I don't know when they gray it out and when they don't, but email may or may not be available, but it would be the email on record at FedEx. And then a phone call, they will actually, you can press that and they will call you, but here's the issue with that. Most of you use a phone tree, dial 1 for this, dial 2 for that. That won't work. It will only work if you're available and you pick up the phone live. Then you'll get the PIN code for that one. If all of these fail, you can, there we go. You can call them directly, and they're going to ask you a few questions. They'll send you an email. That email will have a PIN code. You'll tell them that PIN code over the phone. They will flip a switch, and then you can go back through the re-registration, and it will do the first part where you put in your billing address, but it will actually skip this part and it will be all registered. So the other thing is about FedEx, and we haven't seen this with UPS, but I'm not promising, but with FedEx, multiple unsuccessful attempts will cause your account to be locked for 24 hours. We can't fix that. FedEx can't fix that. So I don't want you to be doing a lot of guessing here. And that's why I want you to have that invoice in hand so you don't have to do a lot of guessing. Okay, I'm going to pause for just a moment and take a look here. Billing name, just use your own name for that, Darren, again on that. Whatever FedEx has on file is what they're looking for. So you know that better than we do. For those of you who are store owners, you should be at your store during this process. Do not leave this to somebody else. For those of you who are store managers, you should ask your owner to be there. Unless they're truly an absentee owner and have no idea what's going on, they should be there for this. For store employees, don't try, unlike other updates, this is probably not something you should be doing, or you should not be doing alone. Okay. The question's going to come up, and I'm probably going to have to answer this 14 times today. So I'm going to answer this one right now. When will this update be released? And the answer is as early as today. It will be released this week. It will not be released to all of you at the same time. This is something that we have rarely done before, but we will do a rolling release on this, meaning that we will release it to a few hundred customers each day. I do anticipate everybody will have it by probably Monday next week. Don't hold me to that. And you have to be updated by the following weekend. So you will have a few days to get it done, but not a lot. Again, if you do not use UPS, you're not in a hurry for this. But if you do use UPS, you are in a hurry to get this done before the 4th of August. The update is all of the credentials, all of this information, you only complete on the master workstation, but just like any update, you do update the master workstation and the auxiliaries. You just don't have to do any of the registration on the auxiliaries. Registration is only done on the master. All right. Next big question, getting help from support. This is important because we will be locking down support to these rules during this because we do anticipate crazy call volumes. So priority will be given to stores who are on version 14. So we have for the last several weeks sent you emails saying if you're not on version 12.18, get on version 12.18. If you call us up and you say I'm on version 12.11 and need help getting updated, now's not the time. Yesterday was the time. So you're responsible for updating your software regularly. And if you've been lax about that, once we release this, please don't expect our support team to be helping you with that. They're going to be focusing on people that actually listen and follow directions, which I am happy to say is everybody on this webinar, because you wouldn't be here if you weren't following directions. So we just have to do that. We have to give the attention to those who are following the instructions, right? Anyone who does not provide a detailed message in their voicemail or email will be placed in the non-urgent category, even if you say it's urgent. We have to do that so that we can sort out. We triage, just so you know, we always triage. In other words, it is never a first call, first serve basis in our support system. It's always a what is their issue and how urgent is that? And you saying it's urgent and us saying it's urgent could be something different. I've had people call in and saying, I need this report right away. Well, you might need that report, but it does not come in front of somebody whose UPS won't ship. They come first, no matter what. So we do that to protect you so that we're not spending 20 minutes with somebody teaching them how to run a report when you might be down shipping. That would be a foolish way to run our support team. So we do this to protect you and make sure that you get the attention that you need. Oh, and don't fib. We don't have too many, but occasionally we'll have somebody who'll lie about what it is, and we make note of that. Don't you do that. I'll come after you. All right. When support gets busy, most support questions will be answered by email. Even if you call in, we will email the email address we have on file with the answer a lot of times. So before you get overly frustrated, check your email, check your junk email just in case, and see if we've sent you a tech note or an answer to your questions. And then there are no rollbacks. So once you move to 14.0, we will not be logging in to help roll you back if you don't have your credentials. This is your warning on what credentials you need and to have them ready. So we will not be rolling you back. There will be some additional updates coming in the next weeks. There are things that we know we will be changing or fixing, or things we will find out that need to be adjusted, and we will be releasing probably an update a week for the next couple, 2, 3, 4 weeks. I don't know, however long it takes to get it all squared away. This is a very, very, very big change for us, and we do not. We're the first to tell you we do not have all the answers. This is all new to us, and the carriers could not or would not provide all the answers. And just so I'm very clear, we sent a laundry list of questions to the carriers that did not get answered, but we have to move forward anyway because there is a mandatory technology change. So we will be learning as we move forward. We think that's a very, very good update. We're very optimistic that it's going to work really well. But we also know that there could be something hidden that we're just not aware of. So we will figure it out and we will make the fixes. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, and please be nice to our staff. Remember, they didn't make this update and they didn't create these technology changes. They're just there to help you. So please pat them on the back, make them feel good, and be kind to them. Oh, they all clapped and applauded. They heard me. Carrier technology change. So the old way, you've received notices from UPS and FedEx over the last year or 6 months or whatever it's been, saying that these were coming. And some of you have sent those in and saying, is that something you guys are going to do? Is that something you guys are going to do? Yes, we're handling it. And this is the update that handles this change. They are turning off the old method of receiving labels. So UPS is turning it off Sunday the 4th. That's why I'm saying if you use UPS, you won't be able to ship through Postmate after Sunday the 4th unless you update and get registered. FedEx did have a deadline on that also. It happened to be, I want to say June 3rd or 2nd or something like that, but clearly they have extended that deadline and they currently don't have what we would call a drop dead date. So a date where they would absolutely turn it off. So it's future. I'm not overly worried about that. Future usually means months, a couple of months out. When that happens, we'll make sure and let you guys know. We do anticipate, we believe everybody should be on version 14 within the next 8 weeks or so though. So we don't want you to lag too far behind. Again, if you use UPS, you need to be on version 14 no later than next week. Moving forward on what is dynamic rating. So let's explain what that is for those of you who don't know. And this is, pretend this is your computer and your workstation, and you're entering all the address info for where the package is going. And you click OK. Postmate's going to send that data, just the address, the weight, the DIMS, the declared value, no rates, because it doesn't have any rates yet. So no rates, just the data to both UPS and FedEx cloud servers. Those cloud servers are going to respond by looking in your specific account for what your charges will be. So it includes the discounts that they have on file for your specific account. That means, in theory, you will always get a perfectly accurate wholesale rate returned to Postalmate. Once it comes back to Postalmate, it queries the rate chart in Postalmate for your margins, adds that to it, and then after that, it displays on the rate comparison screen. It's all seamless. If you use DHL, that is how DHL currently works. We moved to dynamic rating for DHL last fall. So that's how it works with DHL. We're just adding UPS and FedEx to that dynamic rating now. The next question you're going to have is, will USPS follow suit? The answer is yes, but it will not be in 2024. It may be in 2025, no promises, but I think it will. So we will be fully dynamic at that point. The only carrier that I know of that would not be dynamic would be Speedy, and Speedy does not have the technology to do dynamic. And if you don't use Speedy, if you're not in that area of the country or don't use them, then you would have none that are not dynamic. Wow, that's a mouthful. Okay, and I see the questions coming up, and we will get to all the questions, promise you. We'll have a long Q&A at the end. So let's talk about the benefits of dynamic rating. So your rate comes from your account. It always is going to match. Now, if you mess up on the weight or you mess up on the dimensions, And when I say mess up, I don't really mean, because your scale could weigh at one thing and the carrier's scale could weigh at a different. You could measure it at 13 and the carrier could measure it at 14. That happens. But what I'm saying is, as long as the parameters that you have entered in Postalmate that we send to the carrier are identical to the ones that they come back with once they have you have shipped the package, your wholesale will always match your bill perfectly. There will be no more tier levels in Postalmate. So the tier levels will go away because it doesn't matter, because it gets the rates from your actual account. So the discounts are already there. So there's no need to have tier levels, display tier levels, or change tier levels ever again in Postalmate. So you won't be able to be wrong on your tier levels. So that's a really lovely thing. This is the saving grace. Updates will be automatic. You know how, for those of you who have been store owners, you know how every Christmas through New Year's, we are plagued with giant rates for rate change, giant updates for rate change. That will completely go away. Because think about it, when the carrier changes rates, they're just going to send a new wholesale. You have in Postalmate stored your margin. It's just going to apply to the new wholesale. So you don't ever have to make a change for a rate change anymore. It's just magically there. Now you can always go in and adjust your rates, but there's really no reason to. If your margin is 55% and today the cost is $10, well, that's fine. If tomorrow the cost is $11, well, that 55 is going to apply to 11 now, not 10. So it will go up. So it just magically works and there's no major updates. Just to give you an idea, in 2023, there were 18 rate updates. So if you wonder what our development team spends time doing all year long, it used to be, I could honestly say 7-8 years ago, we would have always one at Christmas time, that New Year's, that time, and maybe 1 or 2 others. So a max of 3. But in 2023, we had 18. It's happening. In fact, things change so rapidly, we sometimes don't even get notified about it until after or within a week of an actual change, and we can't react that fast to get you an update. So updates are going to be super easy. Residential commercial will be more reliable. We are still testing this, but one or both carriers, and we don't know for sure yet, this is kind of a learn as we go, are actually checking the address you send them, and they will change it to residential or commercial based on what they know when they return the rate. Now, they won't change it for the other carrier because occasionally, very rare, but occasionally FedEx and UPS won't agree. FedEx might say it's residential and UPS commercial or vice versa. Very rare, but let's just say that happened. In that case, one would respond with a commercial rate and the other would respond with a residential rate. It's important because you have different rates for ground for residential versus commercial. So that will happen and there will be less dinging of your bill from a resi commercial thing. So we're hopeful that both carriers will do it. We have only had production accounts for a very short time from the carriers, so we have not been able to test this with live packages out in the field. So we're going to learn as we go on. What we hope that both carriers, we know that at least one carrier does. I won't tell you which. We know that at least one carrier does. We're hopeful that both do. So that would be really, really nice, a big burden off of your back. Same thing with time in transit. At least one of the carriers, maybe both, is returning a more accurate time in transit at the time that you send them the data. So this is something we hope both of them will. In time, I can tell you this, 5 years from now, both of these things will be 100% with both carriers, if they're not now, because this is the way the world's moving. We've been asked for years by our customers, when are you going in the cloud? When are you going in the cloud? Well, this is going in the cloud. This is part of going in the cloud. So this is the most important part. This is the rates going in the cloud. So this is a very big deal. Some things you need to know. This is important. Postalmate will take your current rate setup in version 12.18 and convert it to the new system. There are going to be some changes. So things that you had set before will look different in the new, but let's say I had a 55% margin on my base rate in 12.18. When it goes to version 14, you're still going to have a 55% margin. Where it's going to get a little bit wiggy, and we will show you that, is in surcharges and add-ons. That's where you're going to see a significant difference in how Postomate calculates those rates for you for a retail charge. We'll go over that in detail. You may see some different services. You can always select to not display them if you want, but I think almost all the services are turned on. So some of you have, for example, turned off FedEx One rate, which we used to call flat rate. Some of you have turned off some other services. Maybe you didn't, maybe an employee did, and you haven't seen it on your screen before. Maybe the former owner did. Maybe your store was owned by somebody else once and they had turned something off and you never knew it. I promise you, many of you will see something and go, whoa, I've never seen that before. Here's the cool thing. They're all available and you still have control, so you can turn them off. We basically send that data to the carrier and they return all services and we display all services. So in service display and Postomate, you can turn those off. From this point forward for UPS and FedEx, all profit margins are based on wholesale. So if you are one of the rare stores that based your profit margins off of published, that can no longer happen because we don't have the published rates anymore. So currently the carriers only return the wholesale rate to us. We are looking to see if that can change in the future, but right now that is the only rate they're able to return to us. So all profit margins are based on wholesale. Now, if your current margins were set against published instead of wholesale, if you're one of those rare stores that did that, it's okay. It's still going to convert over just fine. So let me explain to you. And I'm going to muck this up so horribly, but the best example to use is Celsius and Fahrenheit. If it's 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it's like, I don't know, 38 degrees Celsius, somewhere in that neighborhood. Somebody who's European or something will correct me on this, but let's say, go with it, 38 degrees Celsius. Well, if it's 40 degrees Celsius, which is 2 degrees more, it's not exactly 102 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a weird formula. Same thing with published and wholesale. Whatever you were set to as published, there was a wholesale margin attached to that. Every time you adjusted it against published, it also adjusted it against the wholesale. We're still bringing that over. It's just going to be against wholesale. So it will be whatever you were set against on published, promise. Mouthful. Okay, water, hold on. Again, Natalie, not USPS. Not USPS. This is UPS and FedEx only. Everything about this update is UPS and FedEx only. Okay. If a carrier does not return a rate for a surcharge, there will be no way to add a profit. Now, this is a big change for a lot of you. So there were a number of surcharges that are waived by the carrier. So residential for ground is one of them. And so that was a zero wholesale in Postomate in 12.18. Now, always it has been for years, not always, but has been for years. And some of you selected and went ahead and added $3, $5, $2, $1, I don't care what, but $1 to charge retail. That will not be possible in version 14. So if that is something you currently do in 12.18, be prepared to increase your margins proportionately on ground packages or on ground residential packages, because otherwise you will lose that money. Here's why. When we send that data to the carrier, it returns the cost on all the services and charges and surcharges that apply. Because that one doesn't apply, nothing comes back, so that you can't add something on nothing. You can't add a surcharge that doesn't exist. So that's just a new way of doing things, folks. We can't imitate what we used to do perfectly. We have to get used to a new world of rate setting. It will be an adjustment for some of you. People hate change. I hate change. Change is very, very hard. Once we get through this, it's just a new way of setting rates. Yes, there will be an adjustment. So I will look at doing some more in-depth rate webinars in the coming months. If I feel we need it, I will host one to walk us through some of these questions. Today is not the day for it. Because it only returns the wholesale rate, the C number in the upper right corner, if you're used to using that, is gone, okay? So now it will only have the ID number, which is used for development. That's a development code, ignore that, that's always been there. And it will still have the A number and the D number, but not the C number. So the A number is your cost that it brings back from your account. That should match your bill, again, all the time. It shouldn't even be, I always used to say within 2 pennies, but I think now it should be like spot on because it comes from the carrier. The D number is your dollar profit still. So A number is your cost from the carrier, comes right from your account, and the D number is your profit. If you add A and D together, that's going to be what your customer pays. That's the retail price, okay? When setting rates, your global rate setting tool is exactly the same. Nothing has changed. Okay, looks exactly the same. But when you get into the advanced and you do some advanced rate settings, this is where it's going to change significantly. In the past, you've been able to view, I want to say there was 8 or 10, probably 10 different tables in there of things you could view for each service with each carrier. Now there's one. You can see one table for each service for each carrier. We'll take a look at that. And this is what it looks like. This is your margins table. This is your margins for price setting. And if you, I did a little bit of a close up here. This is just a clip out of that so you could see it where I blew it up a little bit. Right here, you can see that we're set to 53% retail over wholesale plus 0. So I could do like 50, I want to do 53% plus $1 or 50. I'm not sure why you would, but we want to give you options. We don't know how you think and how you want to price things. So we're trying to give you as many options as we can. So again, we can't set over published anymore. We only set it over wholesale. So 53% margin over wholesale. And there it is. And you can see all the zones listed there. Now, while you're looking at the zones, you may see something interesting. Oh, wait, and there's the formula, sorry. And the formula looks very much the same. So you can set the 53%. You can still do as you did before. You can do a whole carrier, you can do a whole service, you can do a group of zones and weights, or you can do a single zone and rate. Your choice. So that part works. You have exactly the same amount of flexibility as you had before, bearing in mind that you're setting against wholesale. Wholesale is what most of you did before anyway. It was a very rare store that ever set against published, but there were a few of them out there. And then there was a new zone that we put in. Let's see here. Oh, you can put in a percentage and a flat amount. Sorry, got ahead of myself. Right over here. See that zone? It's zone unken. See that? Zone unken. It's unknown, zone unknown. So we put in a zone that's unknown for every single service. And the reason for that is the carriers sometimes in the middle of the year will create a brand new zone and say, well, this country is now going to be zone X because it's harder to get to it now because the Red Sea is closed or the Panama Canal is closed or whatever. So we're going to put that country in a new zone and call it zone 89. And we made it so that we don't have to rush out and do an update, create an update for and add that new zone. We've got this unknown zone. Anything that ever comes back from a carrier that doesn't fit in one of the other zones will go into the unknown zone. This is new and this is really a cool feature, cool for you. We put in an automatic 50%. You can change it to whatever you want, but as a fail-safe, I always get that wrong, safe fail, no, fail-safe, we put in 50%. So if that ever happened and you didn't touch this, you would at least have a 50% margin on that. Very rare that it would happen, but it has happened and we wanted to have a safety net there for you. So just so you know what that unknown zone is. Right now, nothing is mapped to it. Nothing will be using the unknown zone. But let's say that sometime, let's say for some reason that, Mexico attacks the UK. Well, maybe, or part of the UK, or the Jersey Island. Maybe some of that would have to go into a new zone because it's harder to get to. That would be a thing. So just so you know, and the carriers mess with zones, especially on international, all the time. Every year, there's some moving around on zones. So we just put it there as a safety net. Okay, so this is a little bit convoluted. I want you to pay attention on this. Bear with me. There's a little bit of math here. But I wanted to explain to you how surcharges are different now than how they used to be. So surcharges, when we first added surcharges, back in the old days when I started, there was no such thing as a surcharge. Surcharges came on board a number of years ago, and the carriers found it was a fantastic way to raise rates. Yeah, they say our rates were increased 5.9%. Yeah, but your surcharges were increased by 38%. You know, those are the kinds of things that we see happening. So in our old version of Postmate, this is a fake carrier and a fake example here, but let's just say there was a description in the old Postmate version 12.18, and there was 4 additional handling zones, and Postmate had wholesales and retails in it. And so the wholesale, you put in flat dollar amounts in the old Postmate. So let's say you had $3, $4, $5.50, and $7. Well, the effective margin on that, if you do the math, and I'm not going to make you do the math, for each one, this is a 33% margin. This one happens to be a 25. This one's a 37. This one's a 38. Okay, that's important. Hang on. This is kind of what it looked like. I grabbed this from a USPS, but this is what it looked like in 12.18. So you had all your different surcharges here, you have your wholesales here, and your retails here, just like here, here, retail, here, and retail here. So just so you understand, I tried to mock it up to look just like the old Postmate, okay? So this plus this plus this plus this equals 133 divided by 4, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, gives you an average of 33%. Okay, so additional handling is an average of 33%. Remember that, that's important. In new Postmate version 14.0, that 33% would convert, and of course here, and it would say 33 instead of 29. In there if that happened to be your actual surcharges. So all additional handling for FedEx Ground averaged 29% in your old version of Postmate 12.18 and came over as a group here instead of listing out all of the additional handling surcharges here. In fact, just to give you an idea of what that looks like, here's the FedEx additional handling surcharges. This are all the additional handling surcharges. It's crazy how many surcharges there are. So instead of individually handling all of those, the carrier returns them just as, and they don't tell us, is it weight, is it packaging, is it dimensions, which one is it? So they return all the surcharges back as a group. And so that's how we have it here as a group. So you would have a 29% in this case, or a 33, whatever you set here. This would be your margin. So that's going to come over from your current Postmate. That's going to convert over. So remember when I said that your rates will be a little bit different with version 14, it's because of this. Maybe you had 15 different additional handling surcharges, and one was a 40% and one was a 20%. Well, if it all averaged out to 30%, then one would be a little higher and one would be a little lower. But it's all going to average out, and you can adjust this. This is nothing is set in stone. Once you see this here, if you don't like the number that's there, change it. Some of you are going to ask, what do you recommend, Karen? Well, I can tell you that typically we see things in the 30s, in the 30% here. That's pretty common. We're going to get back to this in just a moment. Additional handling. Let's see here. Now we're going to go to oversize. Same thing, but we're going to explain something else, a new feature that's really going to help with this. So oversized, just like additional handling, there's a whole bunch of oversized charges. This is FedEx example, UPS's is very similar. And here's what I want to point out on this. On these surcharges, some of them for oversized especially are really, now oversized means that it's between 130 inches and 165 inches length plus girth. You can still ship it. It's not what they called unauthorized oversized, which is not allowed. These are completely allowable packages, but they're just on the bigger end of what's allowable. And so they charge a ridiculous fee. And when I say ridiculous, this is from $160 all the way up to $240 just for the surcharge. Now, let's say I doubled my surcharges. Some stores double them. If it costs me $2, I'm charging $4. Let's say you had 50% margin, which is 100% markup, and you doubled all your surcharges. I got news for you. In most of the country, unless you're in Beverly Hills, in most of the country, if somebody brings a really big box in and it's $200 to ship it, and it has a $480 surcharge on it because you doubled this 240, that customer's going to walk right back out and think you're nuts and tell everybody else you're nuts too. That can be a problem. So you want to have good margins, but there is a point for most of us, not all of you, but most of us where we go, I just can't charge that much more for this surcharge. We created something very cool for you right over here. It's called the profit cap. So you could set in for oversize a 30% margin capped at, let's say, $50. It'll be whatever it is, 30% all the way up until it gets to $50. And if it's more than $50, I'm only going to charge $50 or $75 or $125, whatever works for you. You don't have to set it. If you leave it at none, you're just going to charge 30%, whatever you have set in there. But this is kind of to help you so that you don't feel like, if you're in Timbuktu, Kansas, sorry, Kansas, I always pick on you. But if you live next to Dorothy in Kansas, then you probably can't get away with charging double on that surcharge, or else everybody else in town will run you out with a pitchfork. So please use that profit cap and use your judgment on that. Okay, take a breath. Next on our agenda here, we're going to go back to additional handling, and we're going to go back to the surcharges, and we're now going to talk about fuel surcharges. Fuel surcharges are handled a little bit different. So I'm calling this the MK feature. So this was brought to our attention some time ago with actually DHL, and we made an adjustment for it. I actually tried to call this person because I wanted to shout his name out, but I didn't get a hold of him, so I'm not going to name him. But he knows who he is, MK. This feature was done for you, but it's a good feature for everybody. So we have this little checkbox down here. When you update to version 14, this is checked by default. And it's going to use your same margin that you have for your carrier base rate as your fuel surcharge margin. This, in effect, will be the same as what you have in Postalmate 12.18, with the exception of additional fuel surcharge, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So let's set that aside. So having this checked will be the best case for almost everybody. You don't have to. If you want to set a fuel surcharge, you can. If you notice here in this list, you won't see any fuel surcharge, okay? If you uncheck this, then you'll see a fuel that comes up and you can set it. As soon as you check this, it overrides it and goes away. For most of you, unless you do something really weird with fuel surcharge, you're going to want to leave that checked. Before you update, it would be smart of you to go into your settings in Postalmate and see if you have an additional fuel surcharge. Maybe it's 3%, 5%, 10%. I dealt with a customer last week that had 50% and his rates were wacky and he didn't know why. Well, that was why. If you do have an additional fuel surcharge, that will not convert over, okay? Here's what you need to know about that. If your additional fuel surcharge, let's say, is 7%, okay? When you do your conversion, you probably are going to need to raise your rates by 7%. Now remember, fuel surcharge only affects Express FedEx, International FedEx, and Air UPS. It does not affect Ground UPS or Ground FedEx domestic. So you would only need to raise the rates on those Air or Express services. Our support team will be able to walk you through where to do that, not how to do that. I mean, not what you should be at. And they won't make any decisions and they won't make any recommendations. Even if Karen has said blah, blah, they will not repeat it. Please do not. They are computer software technicians. Please don't ask them detailed rate questions about what your rates are and what you should be set at. That's not their forte. I would not want a technician over at Google figuring out what my rates should be. I don't want a Postmate one technician figuring out what my rates should be. That's not what they do. They're software experts, not rate experts. Okay. Excuse me, my voice is starting to go already. So on that fuel surcharge, 50% is probably pretty good. Again, the MK feature. Okay, and I think I doubled that. Sorry. Okay. I'm a little lost. Where did I go here? Oh, I hit the wrong button. That's why. Sorry. Okay, now we get to carrier insurance. I'm sorry. I'm sitting there going next, next, next. I should see where my finger is. Carrier insurance. So just so you are crystal clear, this does not affect your alternate insurance. If you use RS package insurance, if you use Shipsurance, doesn't have any effect on that. If you use ADV, it does not have any effect on that. It only affects UPS and FedEx insurance. That will now be set by percentage, not by dollar. You cannot do, oh, it's going to be $3 for the first 300 and $8 for the next 100 or whatever. You cannot do dollar amounts anymore. It is percentage only, and that's because that's how it comes back from the carrier. So we have preset you as a safety feature to a 50% margin, which is 100% markup. So if you are charged $3, you are charging $6. That's actually probably where most of you want to be on this. Even if you have alternate insurance, by the way, you should always have your carrier insurance set, because just like last Friday proved, when the CrowdStrike horrible IT thing happened and one of the major alternate insurance carriers went down, those stores had to use carrier, one of the alternate insurers went down, those stores had to rely on carrier insurance that day, and hopefully they had their margins set. So how it comes across in the conversion should be perfectly fine unless you want to charge a different rate for carrier insurance. Again, this is only going to change carrier insurance, not ADV, not Shipsurance, not RS package insurance, which is Marsh. Okay, the get rate spinner. You've seen this if you use DHL. You certainly see this in other applications where it's spinning while it's getting information for you. That's going to become your everyday existence. Having good internet is going to be really important. We do not see this as horribly slow. Some of you will think it is, but it's really not. It's relatively quickly, usually in a couple of seconds. Where I see the longest wait on the spinner, and we're calling this spinner thing purgatory, is when it has to go out and get carrier packaging and bring those rates in, because there's so many, especially for FedEx. So it takes a long time to get all those rates from the carrier. When I say long time, I mean like 4 seconds longer or 5 seconds longer. Typically, we're seeing this respond in 3 to 5 seconds pretty quickly with for all the carriers. But you will know, you will have to adjust mentally to this. It'll be something new, and it's not something we can change. Making sure you change your router or modem no less than every 5 years. Change your cables at least every 8 to 10 years. Cables, actually, the cables, a lot of people don't know this, but if you have the same cables going from your modem to your back of your computer that you had 15 years ago, those probably slow you down because they weren't capable of the current speeds that you're paying for with your internet provider. So that actually, it throttles it. It's like putting it through a funnel. It throttles it. So replace your modem or router every 5 years, replace your cables every, let's say, 10 or so years, and make sure your computers are up to hardware specs. Clearly, if you've been thinking about getting faster internet, we'll see how this works. And if it's too slow for you, faster internet may help. But just know that the spinny thing is here, that this is what cloud, getting rates from the cloud is going to entail. Do I think it will get faster over time? I really do. I think the carriers will get better at it. We'll get smarter in things that we can do to narrow it down. Right now, I don't think filters it down so it only requests those specific things, but maybe in the future we will be doing that. So just as a heads up. But here's some important things, and I know I'll give you an example from my old store, but think about where your scale is located in your store, okay? So if you bump your scale, it's going to go back and re-rate all the things that are on your screen. So if you're in the middle of a package and you bump your scale and it jiggles the scale and it makes a fluctuation happen, it will send out a re-rate, and that will make you crazy. I promise. If you are not already bald, you will be by the end of the day. Not only that, but if your scale happens to be a sensitive scale, like what I call a 6L scale, it could also be sensitive to other things. I used to have a ceiling fan in my store because I'm in Arizona, and I had a ceiling fan in my store, and when that was on high, then even a fan blowing anywhere near that could make it fluctuate, and that would cause in the new update, a re-rate. So think about making sure if your scale is on something that wobbles occasionally, fix the wobble. If it's somewhere where it can get bumped, fix the location. If you have trains that go by, you're out of luck. Okay. Deep breath. So avoiding the spinny thing purgatory. I would say 20% of you are what I call speed demons when you're doing your shipping. Now, being a speed demon is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It means that you want to get rates as quickly as possible for your customer. I respect that. Customer comes in, they just want a rate. You give them a rate real quick. If they say, yeah, that's okay, then you go in and put all the data. Here's the problem. If you do that, it's going to be constantly re-rating. So every time you put something new in, it's going to go out and try to get rates again. So you may want to consider altering that. You're going to get this, and then you're going to enter the dimensions and it's going to come up again. And then you're going to enter declared value and it's going to come up again. And that's going to become a real pill. This is what will make you insane if you're a speed demon. Is every time you make a change on the left-hand side and click OK, it's going to have to go out and do the spinny thing again. So you got spinny thing purgatory. So I highly recommend you reconsider how you do things, your procedures in your store, and turn on some basic prompts and make it a habit to enter things in before you get to the rate comparison screen. I know, but the customer just wants a rate. Well, I'm going to give you 2 really good reasons to change the way you do things. And this is proven. I have tested this. It is absolutely proven. Number 1, entering it all first is going to cause you to not be in spinny thing purgatory, and you have a slim chance of keeping your hair. Number 2, true story. If you enter the from, the to, the package parameters, get to the rate comparison screen, and it's a little bit on the high side for that customer, chances of that customer walking out with their package instead of shipping it with you diminish by probably, and this is my best guesstimate, 50%. Because you have already done all that work, they feel a little bit obligated to you, but more importantly, they may not want to go through all that at another location. So they just ship it. So you will get more shipments or less walkouts by entering all of that data first. True fact. So the recommendation for you are at minimum these 4 prompts: the from, the to, the packaging dimensions, and the declared value. Those 4 prompts. Those can be done right here. If you take a quick picture of the screen with your phone, you can do that. Or you can go to on our website and go to the Help Center and just type in prompts, and there's a guru card that should come up, an answer that should come up that'll walk you through how to do this setting. But at minimum, customer, ship to, packaging dimensions, declared value. That's a good safety net. Most of you do this anyway. Some of you, a few of you, by the way, use WizardShip, and going, what are you talking about? And what's that screen? It's just a different way of doing things. You're probably fine. But entering things before you get to the rates is key. International changes. We do have some international changes with this. Again, for those of you who go to the rate comparison screen first to get a rate, and this happens more, I think, more with international than with anything, just because there's so many factors in entering an international address, right? You used to be able to just get away with entering a country once upon a time. Well, now you're generally required to enter the country, the postal code, and the city. And remember, the city has to be the actual city. I had a customer a week ago that was not getting any rates with DHL, And the city they had a city name and then a parentheses and something else, probably a suburb or a borough or a neighborhood or something like that. But I posed the question to the customer, can you name me one city in the world that has parentheses in the name? And you can't. See, if the carrier servers don't recognize what's on that line, they won't accept it. And they don't recognize anything in parentheses. They won't recognize several names that are not the city. It has to be exactly that city. So don't make up or add extra information on that city line. It's very, very important. So right there, you'll see that. If you do not get any rates, just like if you use DHL today, if you don't get any rates, it usually means that the carrier has not accepted the addresses you have entered it. Now you say, well, that's the address my customer gave me. And I'm going to answer back with, well, that's not the address the server will accept. And it's not our servers, it's the carrier servers. I can't make them accept the address as your customer has it. So you have to put on your Sherlock Holmes hat. You have to figure out what's wrong with this address, or what would the carrier not like about this address. And I don't have a magic answer for this. Our support team doesn't have answers for this. We kind of learn some hints as we go forward, but this is brand new to us too. I don't think it's as picky as the DHL servers. They've traditionally been the pickiest of all, but that you are going to have correct addressing. And this is where it gets really stupid. Stupid fact. UPS and FedEx and DHL may not all agree on what that address should look like and what they accept. So you're going to be in here and you're going to go, well, I shipped it before to that address, Postalmate. What's wrong? Well, maybe you have, but maybe not with that carrier, or after version 14.0 when they have to accept it with different servers. So things change, and we just have to move forward. So it will happen. It will frustrate you. As we learn, I will hold webinars in the future giving you hints and tips and tricks. And as you learn, if you learn something, please feel free to email it to Support Attention Karen and say, hey, I learned this about sending to Nigeria through FedEx. And it was this hint I needed. And that's how I got rates. And so give me those hints and I will put them all together and we'll do a webinar. And by the way, when I do webinars, especially on stuff like that, it's stuff I learned from you. I'm not shipping. I don't ship anything to Nigeria. You guys do. So I learned from your comments to us about what's happening. All right. Entering the customs info is the same as before. Nothing has changed when you're filling out the customs form. It looks exactly the same. However, when it prints out, I can't say this enough, for UPS only, it's going to look different when it prints out. So with FedEx, it's printing from Postalmate still, but from UPS, it's actually printing from their servers. So it's going to look different. All of these electronic document information has been uploaded to the carriers always. You still have to print it out and include it with the package though. FedEx One Rate. So let me tell you the story about FedEx One Rate. In 12.18 and previous, it was always called FedEx Flat Rate in our software, and only in our software and our competitor software. The reason for that is when FedEx introduced it, they were introducing it as a special pricing, and they didn't want customers coming in and getting a one rate price that was different than what they advertised. So they said, yeah, we're going to let your stores have it, but we don't want them to call it one rate because we don't want the public to get confused over the rates. So you're going to have to call it something different. And we're like, what? And they're like, well, you can call it flat rate if you want. And we're like, oh, okay. Well, so it always said flat rate in Postalmate before. It was one rate. That was the service, but we were required to call it flat rate. Well, that requirement went away. So with the new update and going to the new servers, we are now allowed to call it one rate. So you will see it come on. If you can turn it off, by the way. If you don't want one rates on your screen, you can turn it off. This is an example of what it would look like. I have all of them on this particular screen. It still has the FR, which means flat rate, just so you know that this is, so it's obvious to you that this is different from the regular weight-based. We want to make it crystal clear because your discounts stink for most one rate packages, not all, but for most one rate packages, your discounts stink. It's 10%. So you usually with a few exceptions, don't want to send one rate over your weight-based. You usually want to send weight-based. But you can check and look at your A and D number and see. So just so you are not confused, one rate is the same as the old flat rate, and it's there. Oh, almost to the end, guys, and getting to the questions. We are introducing a new UPS service. Yay. UPS Standard to Mexico is now part of PostalMate version 14. We've preset your margins that you have set currently for standard, which is ground to Canada, and put them in standard ground to Mexico, so that if your employee suddenly saw it and decided to ship one, you would have a safety net there. But I'm getting a lot of comments, but you can go change them. If it's not what you want to charge to Mexico, you can go change them. And by the way, if you don't want to send to Mexico, you can disable that, not have it turned on. Your store, your choices. But just so you know, don't get freaked out when you suddenly see a ground service to Mexico from UPS. It's there and it's in version 14.0. All right, finally, review your rates. This is really important. Your rates are going to be converted to the best of our abilities with the technology provided us from the carriers. It's your responsibility to review your rates. I don't want somebody coming in 6 months from now and saying, I lost $50 on this package because of the way your rates converted. This is our notice to you that it's up to you to review your rates and review your margins and make sure that you have everything set. We have done a boatload of fail safes in there, trying to catch every possible thing, things that are marked to 0 or something. We've tried to, get those caught up and into a margin that would be acceptable. By the way, acceptable to us, our default is 50%, and you can you can change it from there, but we just don't want you losing money. That's not going to help either of us, right? So your responsibility is to review your rates. The best way to do that, if you know how to go look at the tables, is go look at the tables, but also always watch your A and D numbers. Make sure you have those turned on, and A should be about, roughly at least half of what you're charging your customer. Your D number should always be higher than your A number for most stores. It doesn't have to be, but I would say most stores that's true. So if your cost is $10, you want your D number to at least be $10 and maybe $12 or $15 or whatever your magic poison is. But make sure that you're making a profit on all of that. Okay, we're going to get to questions now. That's me falling over dead. So I'm going to scroll up, and my handy dandy partner in crime on this is Roger. I'm going to ask Roger to come so you can see his smiling face. And he's going to help me with some of the answers, because I'm not going to have all of the answers. And what I don't have. Hi, Roger. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
So many of you know Roger. He is the leader in the support team. He's the manager over here. And just so you have some background on him, he's fabulous. He sometimes goes with us to events, especially Expo, and does a great job teaching. He is our go-to person in our support team. And I rely heavily on him. In fact, it's really true. When he came to work for us, one of the things for me, was that he answered things in the same way I answered things. And that made it so easy for me to really have him, by my side on all this. So welcome. And we are going to go through some of the questions here.
I think before we even do the questions, if I could focus on just 3 things you said, okay, it'll help us 1,000% in support. Basically, it's your homework. Go to ups.com and just try to log in, because you're going to need those credentials. Get your FedEx invoice, and I kind of grabbed one. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this.
Yep,
but at the top, it looks like this, and it has the invoice number and all that kind of stuff. If you get like an online version of it and you've never seen this, call them and get it, even if they email it to you. The reason is, number 3, if you don't have those things, or if you skip those logins entirely, you won't see any rates. You'll get to the rate comparison screen and there will be nothing there. And then we get a call, and that's the exact things we're going to tell you, is you need those 3 things. So.
Perfect. All right.
And boy, there were
Okay. I'm trying to get through the morning stuff. All right. And you can fire questions out too, Roger.
okay.
All right.
One, will support be open Saturday and Sunday? Currently, we are open 7 to 4 Pacific time on Saturday.
Right. No Sunday hours. Most stores are not open on Sunday, so we encourage you to get updated as quickly as possible when it becomes available. I will repeat, this update will be rolled out. Normally, we allow everybody to update at the same time. That will not happen. You may or may not be on the first day of stores. You'll see it the same as you always see it. We will send emails out. We have already sent emails out with the update guide. We encourage you to print that. And so don't panic, everybody will get it, but we have to do it in a controlled release. And so we will be updating a few hundred stores, next day a few hundred stores, next day many more hundred stores, and then the last day all the rest, probably a couple thousand stores. So I'm guessing it'll be over a 4-day business day period. We won't release on Saturday most likely. So
another question that was pretty common was updating on multiple stations. Now, of course, you'll still have to update Postomate on each station, but the registration will only need to be done on that main station.
okay.
You don't need to go through that registration on each station.
Very good. All righty. And more questions. What if we don't have either carrier accounts yet? Don't worry about it. When you get them, you will register this way. Carol doesn't get FedEx bills, neither mailed or online. She can go to her online account and she should be able to print an invoice out. Again, like Roger said, if you are not able to find it, you need to contact FedEx and have them email one to you. Let's see. We don't have all of the answers. So I'm going to pose a question to you on the billing address for FedEx. My question to FedEx is, do you want the address where bills would be mailed to the store company, whatever? Or do you want the billing address of the credit card I have on file if I pay by credit card? And I don't have the answer to that. So if you use credit card and you enter one address and they're different, you enter one and it doesn't work, then try the other. I think it's the address on file, the billing address on file with FedEx, which may or may not be the
billing
same
address. That's my understanding.
as your
Is
credit
it's
card.
billing address, not the store address.
Yeah, it is definitely the billing address. Again, it is definitely the billing address, not the. It could be the store address too. I mean, if you get billed at your store, but it could be if all your bills come to your home, then it would be your home address. All right. How is this going to affect UPS ASOs who signed up under package? It affects the same as independents. You just go through the same thing. It doesn't matter whether you belong to a franchise or not. We have several franchises on this call today. This update is the same for all of you, regardless of what franchise you belong to. For those of you with Annex brands, if you have rate-specific questions, please contact your headquarters. They know about this update, they understand this update, and they are prepared to help you. So rate-specific questions as an Annex Brands franchise, reach out to your franchise.
Somebody asked about account numbers when they're putting it in for FedEx specifically. Do you use the dashes? No. I don't even think it'll let you type in the dashes.
I'm not 100% sure on that one. I'm going to, one of my support people who is on this call, I want you to reach out to Colette and ask that question and get back to me on that, please. You can come in my studio and answer it. We will get that answer. I think I heard once you do add the dashes, but I'm leaning towards the way Roger says it. So we will get you the exact answer on that. LSO is already dynamic, I believe.
I believe so too.
Yep. Is the store margin applicable across all aspects of wholesale, including fuel surcharges? Yes.
Yeah, a couple of people asked about the fuel.
Okay, and Will USPS, which has nothing to do with this call, allow us to see estimated arrival dates? No, USPS does not provide online arrival dates.
Somebody asked if they're going to lose data for anything they shipped before August
Nope.
4th. That'll
Your
show all
transaction history is
flat
safe.
maps.
Yep, everything, you'll be able to look up a package that you shipped 2 months ago still. So don't
With the
worry about that.
exception of the quotes and the pack laters, which you did cover.
Quotes and ProPack laters will look different. Details on the ProPack laters are, and how those screens will look different are in the update guide. So, and then, sorry, getting through, there's 10 million questions and getting through them is a little tough here.
Yes, there are.
You said it will display all services. What if we don't register for UPS? Are we going to get an error? If you do not register for UPS, you won't get rates.
Yeah, you'll get nothing.
Zip back. Without knowing published rates, how do we maintain competitiveness? The carriers don't return published rates, so we don't have a choice on this, Mark, but published rates are always available in the carrier service guide, so you always have access to them. Okay, stop asking USPS questions. Where do we go to turn off display of certain services? Well, that's a good question. So I'm going to actually go to Postalmate here, if I can. There we go. There's Postalmate. And to turn off specific services, I'm going to go to Tools, if I can get here. Yep, Postalmate Settings. And then I'm going to go to Shipping Settings right in the middle, and then Service Display. And then let's say, this is my main tab. I named it UPS and FedEx only just for today. But if I wanted it to not display something, let's say FedEx Express, I'm going to open it up by clicking this little arrow in front. And let's say I don't want to have freight, for example. Maybe I don't want to have other things. You can have it here. For carrier branded, where the one rates are, you can do the same thing. You would click on this area here for carrier branded. Okay. If the address is a post office box, will it no longer pull up a FedEx UPS as a possible shipping option? I do not believe, we have not tested that, but I do not believe there will be any change in that. So let me explain that to you. When you send to a post office box in a zip code, the only way Postalmate is going to know that it's a post office box is if that entire zip code is post offices. Every address assigned to that zip code is a post office box, which happens in some small towns and stuff. Most zip codes will have a post office and residential and commercial places in that same zip code. So there's no way, because Postalmate doesn't read what's on that address line, that can't filter it out. The reason we don't filter that out is because it would be really complex. So think about it. PO Box 234 is really close to Box 234, which might be a rural route, or rural route Box 234, or 35 Pigeon Avenue Box 234. Or see, you can see there's all kinds of reasons there would have box, or even PO as part of the name in the address. So we will not filter that out. That's something that you'll have to do. And I'm getting horrible feedback. I think Roger, turn down your sound.
Do what? Turn it down? Or
turn down your sound. We're getting feedback.
Is that better?
Yes.
Joe wanted to see that FedEx invoice again. The main part, it's basically a list of the packages, but then up at the top is where the information is that you're going to want, whichever box that is, one of those two.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're not seeing those on a regular basis, you should check with them because it's very informational. Anytime they adjust your bill or anything like that.
Okay. Let's see here. Update, you're always going to update your master first. Boy, I'm getting bad feedback. Do you guys hear the feedback too?
Is it still happening?
Yeah. Yes, everybody gets that feedback. Okay. Only when Karen talks. Yeah, my luck. Mute yourself for a minute, Roger. Let's see.
Yeah, that's
okay,
what I'm doing.
Okay, am I still getting feedback? No, it's because of that. So mute yourself when you're not talking. Okay, there we go. Okay, good. We're good. Okay, got the answer. No dashes when entering the FedEx account number. So thank you, Roger. Roger was right. Let it be known, Roger was right.
First
No
time, right?
dashes when entering the FedEx account number. Okay.
A lot of
Okay.
people are asking about the published rates.
The published rates. So
About
we
the
cannot receive the published rates back from the carrier. They will not be available in Postmates any longer for UPS and FedEx. End of story. If in the future the carriers offer to send us back published rates with the wholesale rate, we will bring that back, but we will not have the published rate tables any longer. That will not be possible. Anything else? Roger, I'm counting on you.
Somebody asked about remapping services or surcharges. You shouldn't need to do that.
Yeah, no other maintenance is necessary.
The prompts that are currently set will not change. So that information is about adding the prompts. It won't impact what's already prompting.
So again, this webinar will become available to you as a link if you want to watch it again and want to have your employees watch it. That's fine. The update guide is it needs to be your Bible for this, so to speak. Please go through it cover to cover. Refer to it, circle things. I've got a whole bunch of things circled in mine. Proof, here it is. I don't know if you can see it. There it is. And so I want you to make sure and go through that. If you've never gone through the update guides before, this is the time to start going through it. Again, we could be releasing as early as today. Please anticipate over the next 5 or so business days, you will have the update. Please do not call support or contact support and say, when will I get it? Which group am I in? Support doesn't know, and we're not telling support. The only person that knows that is Larry Shapiro, and he's not telling anybody. So don't ask us which day you will get it. I do believe we will be putting it on the website. So if you once it's available, you could if you have vacation or something and you have to do it before you go, at that point you could download it from there and handle it. If you're a store owner, please, please, please make sure you're there, or you have somebody you trust absolutely with your entire business there handling this. This is not an update that you have a computer technician come in and do on his own. This is not an update for that. That would be bad behavior.
100%.
All right. I think we're ready to call it quits here. I want to thank you for your time. Please do expect we will take a look at this. If we see a need, we will have follow-up webinars, especially getting into some of the rate details, walk you through that. But please know that for most of you, the conversion of rates from 12.18, we did side-by-side comparisons, and we're very happy with where they were at. So please, if you notice something significantly different, of course, reach out. But for the most part, I think almost 95% of you, it's going to be perfectly fine. Your rates are going to be 5% might need a little bit of adjusting. So not to worry. We are here for you. I want you to take care, and thank you for joining us. Roger, thank you for your help today.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.